Hey guys, it's Chris from Killer Arcade Games, and today I'm going to show you guys details on all my cabinets. It's kind of like a cabinet overviews video. This was suggested by subscribers on a live stream recently, and the reason for it is I get a lot of questions about these cabinets, obviously. People who don't know I do these mods or are just finding it from Google or YouTube. Maybe it was suggested to you on YouTube and you have no idea what all this is. These are Arcade1Up cabinets I have modded into the cabinets I've always wanted them to be. I spent a decent amount of money on them. It's not always cheap, but if you really want to have your perfect Arcade1Up cabinet, this is a good way to go. So what I'm doing in this video is going to go through each cabinet, show you details on all of them. If you're not interested in that cabinet, don't worry, I have timestamps so you can actually skip ahead to the cabinet you are interested in, and you can get the information you need, hopefully. What I'll do from now on is if when anybody asks me, what are you playing this on, I'm just going to send you guys to this video. Hopefully it answers all your questions. If it doesn't, just leave me a comment and I'll be glad to answer anything I can for you. So without me rambling too long in the beginning of this video, let's just go right into it. The first cabinet I'm going to be showing is my light gun build, which is a CarnEvil cabinet, heavily modded Arcade1Up that I did. So let's just go right into that one. Alright, let's start from the bottom up. This cabinet has a riser. It's one of the only ones I have that actually has art on it. Looks pretty cool, so it just came with the pack actually, so we just put it on. Going up a little bit farther, we've got the normal CarnEvil art. Part of the reason I chose this art was because I was cutting the side of the cabinet off, and I knew that the art would end about right there, so you wouldn't have like CarnEvil cut off in the middle. So I thought that looked really cool anyway. It really worked out. I like CarnEvil, so I thought that was a good choice. We've got an aim track light gun here. If you'll notice, I only have one gun currently, but that is just because I don't want to buy another aim track gun when I've ordered send-in light guns. I've been waiting quite a while for those send-in light guns, but hopefully they'll be worth the wait. Once I get them, I'll buy another holster, put it on the other side. For now, these Ultimark aim track light guns work pretty well. Can't really complain too much. They do have some issues with calibration, but I just kind of think that's how it is, unfortunately. So my original plan with this cabinet was to actually get a custom deck made, and that way I could put a trackball in here, and then I could play Golden Tee also. Well, that is not going to work out, I realize now, because I put my marquee down here. I really wanted this cabinet to still have a marquee. If you back it up, you'll see the top of the cabinet here. It doesn't have anything because it's just the monitor, the big 32-inch monitor. So I put the marquee down here. I thought it looked pretty good. It's leaned back, so it's looking towards you at least. It's a light-up marquee from Arcade Game Factory. It's their Lightbox marquee. The art was printed by Escape Pod. Same thing with the art on the sides and on the riser. So this cabinet was a Final Fight cabinet. It still has the joystick holes in the acrylic, and there's actually still the hole under here, but I just put the thick art over it, and I'm not worried of anybody poking a hole through it. Same thing up here with the on switch and the old volume hole. I just took those out completely, and there's still cutouts here, same with the speaker, but that's fine. What my idea is to maybe cut out a hole over here, put the trackball on this side eventually. Since I can no longer add a custom deck because of where the marquee sits, this can't be adjusted. It has to stay right here, so this is always going to be, it's going to have to be at least this thickness, which I don't know if anyone's making custom decks at that thickness. You're probably wondering why I have so many buttons on here. It's primarily to fill the holes. I thought about even putting them in the joystick holes, but I just decided against that. Of course, you got your two start buttons. These are correct to the arcade color scheme, and I figured since this was more of a carnival themed cabinet, I'd put some wacky button colors, and I don't know, I'm kind of happy with it. It will probably be changed in the future though. As of now, these are what navigate up and down in these launchbox menus, and these are exit buttons to get out of games. And in some games that aren't set to free play on here, these are credit buttons. Like, even though this is on free play, you can still add credits. Moving up, we've got the 32-inch screen. It's actually just an Insignia TV, but this was so cheap, it was well worth it, I think. I think it looks pretty darn good. I do run custom side art, and included with that is this kind of bezel that looks like a TV monitor, I guess, or just an arcade monitor. And the game actually runs at the full 25 inches, so from here to the corner, that is 25 inches. That's exactly what the CarnEvil arcade game had, so that's why I wanted to do this. This is one of those cabinets where I think you really need a larger screen, so just know if you're ever building something like this, a 32-inch will give you about a 25-inch playfield, which is exactly what the real arcade games had in them. Up here is my aim track light gun sensor. That's what sees where the guns are pointing. It's not perfect. It's similar to about a Wii, I guess. Moving back to the side of this cabinet, when I built the cabinet originally, I didn't really account for the fact that everything behind the screen would be visible, which I'm just going to show you up and over currently. There is the TV mount that is actually bolted to a piece of wood I put down in there. Covered the top piece with vinyl, so it just covered the raw wood look. And there's my speakers. Now, There's still an opening right here on the side, but what I did was actually take some cheap foam board from the craft store, and it's pretty janky, I'll be the first to admit this, but taped it together and put the remaining side art on so it doesn't look so bad. I still would like to do something more in the future, but for now I'm pretty happy with this, and leaving this opening actually lets the sound come out, and it sounds really good, surprisingly. The only thing I don't like is you could still see the pole sticking up. I suppose I could saw that off because I don't ever need to really use it up that high, but we'll do that another time. All right, so in the back of the cabinet, I'm not going to show you guys the back of every cabinet because they get very redundant. What is inside this cabinet is actually what's inside every single one of my cabinets minus 2, and I'll show you the differences on those most likely. Down in here, we've got the usual HP Elitedesk 800. This is the PC I use for all my builds except for the Mortal Kombat 4, but that is an arcade board build. Over here is a Logitech subwoofer, which goes up to those speakers there. It's not the most powerful in the world, but for $35, $40, it's pretty darn good. It shakes the cabinet just enough, doesn't make anything vibrate or rattle. On every one of my cabinets, you'll see a power strip here. This is what turns the cabinet off and on. I'll show you that once the back panel's back on. And this one's actually different. Inside this is going to be where my PC shutdown button is, and once again, I'll show you how I access that from the back. When the back panel is on, this is where I turn my volume up and down, and I can actually turn it off by reaching back here. This is unusual for all my other cabinets, usually on top of the cabinet. Over here is the hole where I can reach in and press the button to shut down the computer, and the hole down here where I can reach in and just flip the power switch. That's how I turn them off and on. This cabinet actually does not have a fan on the back of it. I only have 2 of them with fans currently. I thought for sure I would need it because it's so much tighter in there, but so far, everything stays really cool, and I don't want to add any more noise to the room by adding an unnecessary fan. If you would like to see more on this cabinet and how it was built, I'll link to some CarnEvil videos in the description. But for now, let's move to the next cabinet. And here is my first ever Arcade1Up mod. This was actually a Street Fighter cabinet when I bought it. I built this one in like 2018, actually, the end of 2018. It was the second ever confirmed Killer Instinct to be made out of an Arcade1Up. I know this because I know the guy who made the other one, which actually had the arcade board in it, which was really cool, but mine just has a PC inside. Since the build, the initial build, I've actually upgraded the PC to the HP Elitedesk. I don't think I'm going to go inside of this one. I have a very similar Logitech sound system, only it's a higher end one. It's an older Logitech sound system, but to let you see a little bit of it, it's these speakers here that are incredibly old now that I think about it, but they sound so good. The subwoofer is really beefy. I love that subwoofer, and I actually kept this sound system for probably 5 years unused, knowing that one day I'm going to build a Killer Instinct cabinet of some kind, and that's the sound system I wanted to use. Moving down, this one is not looking as good as the other ones. You may have noticed already by the marquee. It is sitting on an Arcade1Up riser, just stock right now. Maybe that'll change in the future. I've got my Escape Pod graphics. Now, don't judge them too harshly because this was, like I said, probably the first set they ever printed of them. I'm not as big of a fan as it now that time has gone on and I've seen their other work. It's not really the sharpest. It's kind of a matte finish rather than glossy. I have plans to upgrade this cabinet, but now that Arcade1Up has announced a cabinet, I'm going to kind of wait and see at this point. Here's the kick plate art, and here are the coin buttons that I've recently upgraded to. Apologize for the dust. It's still the sawdust on there that I've been trying to get off after drilling the hole for this exit button. Over here is the other KI coin button. And here's the control deck. I was really excited about this initially because I wasn't sure I was going to actually find Killer Instinct art. And it's pretty darn good. Of course, here you can see the button art overlays over the Killer Instinct, and I always wondered why they didn't just shrink down the Killer Instinct a little bit more so it could actually not overlap, but that's fine. I may be upgrading that in the future. These controls are HAP controls. They're from Tornado Terry. These are what you will find in a real arcade cabinet, in a real Killer Instinct cabinet. These are HAP controls, and I can't get enough of them. They're in all of my cabinets that require joysticks or buttons. These are the proper micro switches too, the 50 gram. They feel really, really good. They feel like you're playing the arcade. Currently there is a crack here. My wife was vacuuming and bumped into this side of it and it cracked it. No big deal. I actually have another plexi overlay, but I'm waiting to see what I'm going to do about the art. Speaking of the art, once again, glitches of getting some of the first prints ever. The KI is actually tucked up underneath the control deck. No big deal there. I may be fixing that in the future. Stock screen, 17-inch Arcade1Up monitor. Here's another thing that really needs an upgrade. Here's an Arcade Game Factory, one of the old school marquees they ever made. The marquee is pretty much fine, but I think I will upgrade the marquee to the newer marquee that is on the Blitz cabinet that I'm going to show you a little bit later. This one's okay. You can still see the screws coming through the sides, and this print is pretty horrific. I think I got this one from Arcade Graphics. I don't know if I can blame them for that, because I think I sent them this file, which was really high res, so I was kind of surprised it was this bad. But, you know, seeing it up close, it looks really awful. If you see it at the right angle, it doesn't look so bad. Of course, my light is showing on the screen and everything right now. And like I showed you earlier, here's the PC power off button, and I can also control my sound right there. I'm not going to actually open this cabinet. It does have the same old HP Elitedesk PC that I linked to in the description. It runs it really, really well. I did put a fan on the back of this one because it did get pretty toasty for some reason. Don't really know why, but I will link to the video on me installing these fans. That way you can see how it's done. Down here, I've got 2 wires coming out of this one. One is power. One is actually an HDMI cable that I've split off from the PC so I can stream the gameplay. Peeking inside there, same deal. Flip the power switch to turn the cabinet off and on. And that's about it for Killer Instinct. It's a good looking cabinet, it just needs a revamp. That was fully planned until they announced the official Arcade1Up Killer Instinct cabinet. But I still think I'm going to at least fix this one up a little bit eventually. Whether I just love the Killer Instinct Arcade1Up cabinet, doesn't matter. I'm keeping this one either way because this was my first build and it's just very special to me. At the very least, I could see myself maybe turning it into a KI2 cabinet, but that's unlikely. So that's all for Killer Instinct. I'm going to move on to the next cabinet, which is going to be Mortal Kombat 4. This one's actually quite a bit different than all my other cabinets, and we'll talk about that now. I apologize for the glare coming off the screen. I'm going to start at the top this time because this marquee had some controversy. Every time you guys see it in video, I'm going to back up really quick. Every time you guys see it in video, the marquee looks bad. Well, that is not actually the marquee. The thing is, the marquee is really bright. The print is actually really, really good. I love this print. This is actually an Angel A. Otero Jr., I believe is his name on Facebook. This is his marquee, and somebody gave him crap because I ranked his second out of whatever list I'd made on him. And the only reason for that was the fact that I actually had to mount my own light. I really like the new Arcade Game Factory idea of putting the light mount inside the marquee itself, so you don't have to worry about sticking the light anywhere. But I could not do that with this cabinet because this cabinet is actually running the arcade board, and these gigantic real arcade speakers are inside the top of this one. So let's talk a little more about this cabinet. Where did it come from? I did not build this cabinet. This cabinet was built by a subscriber of the channel, now friend of the channel, Daniel. Daniel was building tons of amazing Arcade1Up mods. I mean, he had like 2 rooms of these things, and I guess he just changed his mind suddenly and wanted to sell it. He offered it to me, and he insisted I be the one to buy it, so he gave me an amazing price for it. I drove 600 miles one way for it. This is a love of mine that will not go away. The only thing I've actually done to it is put the Mortal Kombat light-up marquee in it, but I love this cabinet so much. I'm going to actually show you inside this one since it does have the arcade board, but first, let's take a look at the art. Look at this awesome Mortal Kombat 4 Quan Chi art. I know not a lot of people love Mortal Kombat 4 like I do, but this game is so special to me for some reason. I love its quirkiness, its weirdness, it's an odd game all the way around, but I think the gameplay is actually really great. So you can debate me on that and that's fine, I'm not going to argue with you, but I love this game. It's really a lot of fun. So this one's actually running the stock Arcade1Up monitor, and look at this control deck. This is probably one of the most spot-on control decks I've seen made for an Arcade1Up. They were able to include the button assignments, the art around the buttons, including this one. This one is pretty much, even under here, by the way, look at that. There's the art around the joystick, which would normally be showing on a midway cabinet, but I can't put these under the deck, unfortunately. Everything is dead on. I was so blown away that Daniel was able to get this art. I was actually watching the build process of this. He would text me. I never knew I'd be owning it one day, but this is amazing to me. Moving down, at the time of filming this is the only other cabinet I've added these light-up buttons to. We've got Goro press for credit there. We've got, this is actually a service menu button in this case. And over here, this is Scorpion and Sub-Zero push for credit button. Down here, this is probably the least favorite part of the art to me. This reminds me of the console version, and this is not the console version. This is the arcade version. It's the only way to do it in my opinion. Sitting on an Arcade1Up stock riser. One of these days I'm going to get art on those risers. Now let me turn this thing around and let you guys see the back of it. Just in case my wife sees this, quick disclaimer, I've not dusted any of this, so I apologize for the dust. Here we go. And there's some of that famous dust, but oh well, I'm going to dust it one of these days, so I apologize, Mrs. Cag, if you're seeing this. Inside, we've got the classic cardboard on the back of the monitor move with the converter board there. Now you may be asking, how on earth am I getting an arcade board signal to HDMI? Well, here it is. This board actually takes the arcade signal, which is right here, converts it with some kind of magic to an HDMI port, which is down there. And in this case, I have a splitter also because I like to stream from this cabinet. One HDMI goes to this board and one goes to my Elgato. And here's where it gets a little messy, and don't judge too harshly, guys. Down inside here is a rat's nest, and I got so much crap for this when I showed that I was buying it. I have not touched this thing since it was built. I was actually, if I'm being honest, I was afraid to mess with it. I heard a horror story of Daniel actually killing the first board by doing just one thing wrong, and I did not want to risk that. So I have not dug in here to fix this JAMA harness mess that goes up to the buttons up there. It doesn't really bother me. I would love to be able to move the board actually up on the wall, because I have a terrible fear that those heavy speakers up top will one day come loose and smash down on my Mortal Kombat 4 arcade board, which there are not that many left of. You know, you can't just go to the store and be like, hey, give me one of those MK4 arcade PCBs. These things are a limited quantity now, just like all arcade PCBs. So the idea of losing one scares me. Over here is the power supply, also installed by Daniel, of course. I did end up sticking this power strip to the wall. And this is great. I actually can't, there's no way to shut this down, so I just flip the switch, turn it off and on, no problem, as if it were a real arcade. I did install this giant, I think a 10-inch desk fan that runs on USB power, just to blow some air around the board to keep it moving. I've felt the board while it's been running for hours. Never felt any heat on it, so that makes me feel pretty good. So that is MK4. That's all the details on it. I'm happy with it. I've had a lot of people want to buy this one, actually. I'll probably never get rid of this cabinet, unless I'm just hurting for money or something, or I guess unless I somehow find the full-size real thing. But anyway, let's move to its brother next door here. This is the MK2 cabinet. So when Arcade1Up announced that they were going to be making an MK2 cabinet, I said I have to buy that one. My original plan was to only ever have the Killer Instinct, but now we have 6 of these things. And when they announced this one was coming, I said, well, I'm definitely buying that. And I did leave it stock for a little while, and it technically still is stock on the outside. The art's all the same except for the marquee, which has been upgraded to an arcade game factory. This is an old school arcade game factory. Once again, screws seen here and there with light leak. I may upgrade that one in the future when I have just some spare money and spare time. Control deck has been upgraded though. This is no longer the stock buttons. This is a HAP joystick set, just like in my KI, just like in my Mortal Kombat 4. You have to upgrade to these. These are so much better than the stock controls, in my opinion. I am going to go ahead and upgrade these buttons, but here's my coin button. That's my exit button. I'm going to upgrade them for just the aesthetic and because it's confusing to somebody playing the cabinet for the first time. Sitting on a stock riser like all my cabinets. I'm not going to show you the inside of this one. Inside of this one is the same Logitech sound system that's in CarnEvil, and it also has the exact same HP Elitedesk PC running this one. You're probably seeing a pattern here, and it's going to continue, so get ready. On top, like I said, same buttons up there, audio controls, and PC shutdown button back there. There's really not a whole lot more to say about this one. If you guys have any further questions, let me know. And that's really it for MK2, so let's move on to this beauty right next door to it. This is my NFL Blitz cabinet. I love this one so much. I think it's one of the prettiest cabinets I have. I can't really show you the art that well. It's so hard to get it out of this corner. But you can see it down here, and it is really well made. This is escape pod art, and it is gorgeous. This is probably one of the prettiest cabinets I have outside of maybe the Star Wars cabinet. Moving up the front here, this is the only cabinet I have outside of the CarnEvil with a J panel with art on it. I will be upgrading those buttons to the light up button soon. And let's take a look at one of my favorite pieces of the cabinet, pieces of art on the cabinet, I should say. This is so dead on to the original cabinet that I just couldn't believe it. I actually ordered this separate. This was from arcadegraphics.com. I don't know that they still have this exact one. Somebody ordered recently and these button assignments were actually missing, and that's what I really wanted. I mean, this thing is dead on to the arcade as far as I can tell. And continuing with the theme you've heard throughout this video, these are HAP controls, HAP buttons, HAP sticks. These are not arcade accurate in a way though, because these were 49-way joysticks in the arcade, meaning it had a lot more precision. You could kind of just barely move the stick and your guy would turn to the right more. These are just 8-way sticks because I don't think there's any way to get 49-way sticks to work on MAME. Now, I could be wrong, but they're also extremely expensive, so I didn't really care that much. And over here is a stock Arcade1Up 17-inch monitor. I don't really mind the 17-inch monitors that much. And looking at one of my favorite marquees in the house, this is the Arcade Game Factory Lightbox marquee. The print is actually from Escape Pod, and this is probably one of the prettiest prints I have. I can't believe how good it looks. I'm just trying to get close to it here. It's really bright. It's not blinding bright, but it's really bright and it looks really good. On top of the cabinet, it's the usual Logitech sound system and power button down there. And inside is the exact same as the other ones, an HP Elitedesk running down inside there with a Logitech subwoofer. This is the only other cabinet I have besides the Killer Instinct cabinet that has a fan on the back, and that's because Blitz really stresses these computers, but it's enough to run them smoothly, so I don't worry too much about it. Okay, moving on to the Star Wars cabinet. This one is modified also. We didn't go too crazy with the buttons on this one. We just put what was really needed to get the gameplay done. This has been, of course, modified to run on a PC. We've got buttons hiding there and there. So we usually, by default, just run Empire Strikes Back on this cabinet. This is a gorgeous cabinet, I think. It's in our living room. My wife loves this so much, she wanted it in the living room. And we put blue LEDs on the back that I'll show you guys in a second. Normally, I don't like light-up stuff on my cabinets, but this glow that it gives off looks really cool being a Star Wars cabinet. I'll show you guys a few of the games that are on here now. On this one, I'm actually running 2 launch box setups. On this one is my more basic one that I run for my wife because it's very simple for her. She can just get to it easily. I have added a few Techno Parrot games, racing games. It's actually mostly racing games at this point. Also running on this cabinet is the Kong's R Us Starcade 2.0 playlist. This is the more involved one that has a ton of different games. I like this playlist a whole lot, but my wife likes things a little simplified. She didn't like going through all the menus, she said. But this really is a great playlist. I actually reviewed it on the channel. I'll link to that in the description for you to check out. This is a pretty easy setup. If you don't want to go through making your own launch box setup, this is the way to go. So check for that link in the description. We also have a Darth Vader stool that we got off Amazon. This is not the Arcade1Up stool, obviously. We found this one to be a little bit cheaper and more readily available. It's pretty much the same quality, which means it's not the best, but it's comfortable enough to have a good time on. I'm also going to leave a link to this one in the description. I'm not going to open this cabinet because, once again, it's got the same HP Elitedesk PC inside. It's got the same Logitech sound system, only the speakers were actually hidden inside the cabinet. So when you look up under here, of course, you have the stock speaker holes. They are pointing that direction and the sound just comes through them. Since the top of this cabinet is actually flat, I did not want big bulging speakers sitting on top. Got the sound control, the PC shutdown button as usual, and these LEDs, which are really nicely done if you just wrap them around and snip them where you need to. This is a really nice touch. Once again, I don't love this on all my cabinets, but on this one it just made sense. That blue glow coming off this cabinet looks really nice. One last detail about this cabinet is this one was actually donated to me, or the money was sent to me by a really nice subscriber who did not want to be outed, so I never really talk about it much, but I wanted to say thank you again to that subscriber. They knew my wife loved this cabinet, we wanted this cabinet, and I was looking for a deal one day, and then somebody just PayPal'd me the money, which was awesome. Once again, they didn't want any credit for it, so we don't talk about who it was, but thank you again to the anonymous subscriber. This is such a great addition to the house. I mean, I don't want to show you my whole living room because it's not perfectly clean and the wife will get mad, but we love having this thing down here. I play this a lot. You don't see it much on the channel because it is in the living room, but this cabinet is probably one of the most played cabinets. Alright, so that's all the information on all my cabinets that I could think to give you guys. Hopefully it was helpful, but now I want to show you all the cabinets booting up at once. Maybe I'm just a nerd, but when I used to work in an arcade, I loved turning on all the games in the morning and getting to kind of hear the symphony of life come out of these arcade games. It was just really cool to go from this dead, dark room to just a noisy, lively arcade. I don't know what it is. I love that sound, and it's really cool to me. But I also wanted to demonstrate how fast these cabinets boot up. My original build, which was the Killer Instinct right here, I used to have an old PC in it. It used to take a good 2.5 minutes to even be playable. Now I can get all of these up and running in just about 1 minute or less. In fact, it even rivals the speed of a real arcade board booting up. The MK4 always boots up a little bit faster, but I can pretty much be playing MK2 right next to it within 10-15 seconds of the MK4 being ready, which I think is pretty darn good for running on a modded PC situation versus the arcade hardware. One quick note, Killer Instinct for some reason booted up a little slowly on this one. Normally it boots up in line with all the other ones, but I think something went wrong. I didn't really notice it until I was watching it back and syncing all the videos up. It looks like maybe the BIOS caused something to reboot immediately and it just got behind. I didn't want to re-record it because I'd already got everything together in this package. It's fine, it's not a big deal. It normally boots up as fast as all the others though, so just keep that in mind.
Initializing big bucks. Initializing big bucks. Thousands of years ago, in a battle with the fallen elder god known as Shinada, I was responsible for the death of an entire civilization. To rid all realms of Shinada's menace, I waged the war that plunged the earth into centuries of darkness and banished Shinada to the place called Emperor. Now, after a dark deed at the hands of Earth warrior, Shinada has managed to shriek his bloodline to the underworld. The war is now being fought once again.
Alright guys, that's all for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found it informative. If you did, please consider giving it a thumbs up. Please leave me a comment if you have any questions. I don't mind answering questions on these cabinets. It's just I wanted everything to be in one video, but I'll be glad to answer your question. And if your question's really good, it's something I somehow forgot, maybe I'll pin it or give it a heart so everyone can notice it. But be sure to leave a comment if you do have a question. Also, check the description if you want to know how to mod an Arcade1Up. I've got an hour-long video that shows you step-by-step details on how to generally mod an Arcade1Up. It's not specific to any game or any genre, but it's just a general guide on modding an Arcade1Up. It's an hour-long video. It has detailed instructions, like I said. It also has every link to everything you may need to buy. A lot of people have modded their cabinet using my video. They've left me comments and they've told me it was helpful. So just check for that video in the description. Until next time, guys, give me a subscribe, give me a like, give me a comment, and I'll see you guys on the next video. Thanks for watching.